In the quiet and secluded village of Elderswood, the days were short and the nights seemed to stretch on forever. Thick fog rolled in like a suffocating blanket every evening, turning the village into a ghostly landscape. The people of Elderswood spoke in hushed voices about the legend of the Midnight Walker, a story as old as the village itself. They believed that the Midnight Walker was once a man wrongfully accused of terrible crimes, sentenced to death for something he did not do. After his unjust execution, his restless spirit became bound to the dark, dense forest that surrounded Elderswood. Each night, as the clock struck midnight, an eerie stillness would fall upon the village. The sounds of the night, crickets, owls, and even the wind, would disappear as if they were swallowed by the darkness. It was during this dead silence that the Midnight Walker would emerge. His figure, cloaked in rags, would materialize from the mist, his face hidden deep within a hood that no one had ever seen beneath. His pale hands reached out into the night as he wandered endlessly, seeking something lost, something he would never find. The villagers feared the Midnight Walker, but few had ever seen him and lived to tell the tale. They would lock their doors tightly, refusing to even glance out their windows after the church bell tolled 12 times. But young Eli was different. He had grown up hearing the stories, but instead of fear, he felt curiosity. He wanted to know if the tales were true, if the Midnight Walker really roamed the woods outside the village at night. One evening, Eli gathered his courage. Armed with only a lantern and his unshakable curiosity, he ventured out into the forest. The fog was thick, and the air was damp and cold. As Eli moved deeper into the woods, the tall, twisted trees cast long shadows that seemed to reach out for him. His footsteps echoed eerily in the silence, but he pressed on, determined to face the Midnight Walker himself. As Eli reached the heart of the forest, the church bell in the distance began to chime midnight. The first toll of the bell sent a shiver down his spine. As the 12th chime echoed through the trees, a gust of icy wind tore through the forest, nearly snuffing out his lantern. Eli stopped, his breath visible in the cold night air, as he looked around nervously. And then, in the distance, he saw it. A dark silhouette appeared through the fog, slowly approaching. Eli's heart raced as the figure drew nearer. Each step it took seemed to echo louder and louder in the stillness. The closer the figure came, the colder the air grew, until Eli could feel the frost biting at his skin. He wanted to move, to run, but his legs wouldn't respond. He was rooted to the spot as the figure finally stopped, just a few feet in front of him. The Midnight Walker stood before him, cloaked in tattered robes, his face still hidden beneath the hood. Eli could feel the weight of the Walker's presence, a deep sadness mixed with something far more terrifying. Without warning, the Walker reached out with a skeletal hand, its pale, bony fingers reaching for Eli's lantern. The light flickered violently, casting terrifying shadows across the forest. Suddenly, the lantern went out, plunging Eli into complete darkness. The only sound he could hear was his own breath, ragged and fast. In that moment, he realized he was not alone. A cold whisper brushed against his ear, sending a jolt of fear through his body. The Walker was speaking, but the words were incomprehensible, ancient, like a language forgotten by time itself. Eli felt the hand grip his arm, its touch colder than death itself. Panic surged through him, and with all his strength, he pulled away and ran, blindly stumbling through the forest. He could feel the Walker's presence behind him, closing in, but he didn't dare look back. The trees blurred as he ran, branches clawing at him, the fog thickening as if trying to pull him back. At last, Eli broke through the edge of the forest and collapsed onto the village road, gasping for air. The cold presence was gone, but the memory of it clung to him like a shadow. Shaking, he scrambled to his feet and ran back home, slamming the door behind him. For the rest of the night, he sat by the fire, too scared to sleep, the Walker's cold whisper still echoing in his mind. From that night on, Eli never ventured into the woods again. The Midnight Walker was real, and Eli had faced him. But he knew that he had only just escaped the fate that awaited anyone who dared cross the path of the restless spirit bound to those woods. And though the village of Elderswood continued its quiet life, Eli would always remember the cold touch, the eerie whisper, and the figure that forever roamed in the darkness.